During introductions today, we have a special guest, Senator Williams from Hobson, Montana. After question period today, the House will be dealing with two resolutions on a procedural matter, mainly about coming back after the July the 1st weekend, if necessary, and the fact that there will be a fall sitting of the legislature. At second readings today, there are 4 bills at that stage: the Livestock Industry Diversification Act, Alberta Government Telephones, Ambulance Services Act, and the Natural Resources Conservation Board. Last night, the House sat until almost midnight. 3 bills were passed from the Committee of the Whole stage into third reading. So at this stage, there are now the 4 bills at second reading, 15 bills Committee of the Whole, and 16 bills at third reading. Our Divine Father, as we conclude for this week our work in this assembly, we renew our thanks and ask that we may continue our work under your guidance. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Honorable members, seated in my gallery today from the state of Montana, Senator Williams and his wife. I ask that they stand and ask the House to recognize them.
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions.
Member for Edmonton Millwoods.
Mr. Speaker, I give oral notice now that after question period, I'd like to submit the following resolution under Standing Order 40. Be it resolved that since June 16th is United Nations Day of Solidarity with the people of South Africa, commonly known as Soweto Day, and that in light of the fact that Nelson Mandela, the leader of the African National Congress, is about to make an historic visit to Canada, the Legislative Assembly fully endorsed international sanctions against South Africa in order to speed up the full liberation of the South African people from the oppression of apartheid.
Introduction of bills.
Provincial Treasurer.
I am pleased today, Mr. Speaker, to introduce Bill 38, the Loan and Trust Corporations Act. This legislation, Mr. Speaker, is a complete rewrite of the trust company legislation now operating in this province, and incorporates a variety of changes which flow from review of legislation provincially, dealing with the response to the problems we have suffered here in Alberta, and as part of a comprehensive review of financial institutional legislation, which my colleague, the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, and I have undertaken over the past 2 years. This bill and its principles, Mr. Speaker, deal with enhanced reporting requirements, new forms of registration of trust companies in the province, and of course are very specific about the way in which the activities of a trust company will be governed and controlled in this province. Speaker, I would note that the government intends to leave this bill in the order paper until the fall. Mr. Speaker, I move first reading of Bill 38, Loan and Trust Corporations Act.
The Honorable Provincial Treasurer has moved first reading of Bill 38, Loan and Trust Corporations Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Matter carries.
Bill number 38, Loan and Trust Corporations Act, introduced by Honorable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports. Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs for 2 introductions.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly a school group from my riding who have been here each year. There have been students from this school, and I'm pleased to see that. They're from the Lycée Louis Pasteur School, and there are 3 students and 2 teachers. The students, Jonathan Lane, Andrew Clogg, Lila Ahad, and the teachers, Alexis Aiken and Bogna Skupinska. And I would ask the 5 of them who are in the members' gallery to stand and receive the welcome of the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, it's also my pleasure today to introduce to you 2 uncles of one of our pages, Sarah Stemkins, and they're both in your gallery. One of them is Mr. Frank Grunveld from Surrey, BC, and the other is Mr. Joe Broons from the Netherlands. And I'd ask them both to stand and receive the welcome, the one to our country, the other to our province, and we hope that they will enjoy their stay here.
Minister of Agriculture, followed by the Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly, school class, and I'm doing this on behalf of the Associate Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Shirley McClellan. But it's a particular pleasure because they're from a school that I served as principal of for 9 years. And when you see the parents up there stand up, most of them were students of mine. They come from that generation. There are 33 grade 5 and 6 students from the Ontario School located in the Chinook constituency. They're accompanied by parents, Mr. Eddie Ference, Mr. and Mrs. Martin Ference, Mr. Doug Ference, Mr. and Mrs. Wayne Kelts, and Mrs. Donna Murphy. And I'd ask that they stand and receive the warm welcome of the legislature, even the welcome of my friend that likes to interrupt, Nick Taylor.
Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
Speaker, I would like to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly some visitors from the Green Nation from Ireland, Reverend Dick and Maureen Ross, who are visiting here in our Green Province for 3 months. They're accompanied by Ann and Dave Hebert from the Green constituency of Edmonton Park Allen. They're in the members' gallery. I'd like them to receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Calder, followed by Calgary Forest Lawn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased this morning to be able to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly 21 students from the Athlon School located in the constituency of Edmonton Calder. They are accompanied by their teacher, John Bell, and they are seated in the public gallery, and I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my colleague from Calgary Mountain View, it's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you, Mr. Speaker, and to members of the Assembly, 17 students from Rundle College in Calgary. They're seated in your public gallery, and they're accompanied by teachers, Mr. Rod Martins and Mrs. Margaret Bland. I'd ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Jasper Place, followed by Clover Bar.
Mr. Speaker, I have some very special guests this morning from the constituency of Edmonton Jasper Place. They are my father, Melton McInnes, my mother, Tilly McInnes, my wife, Luba Lyson, and my former next-door neighbor, Mr. Bill Lumsden. They're in the public gallery, and I wonder if they could rise and receive the welcome of the Assembly.
Clover Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly 11 grade 10 students from the John Paul II High School in Fort Saskatchewan. They're accompanied by their teacher, Mr. Reg Wolfley, and they're visiting the house on a tour, and I will have the opportunity to visit with them in turn on Monday next. I would ask that the students and their teacher rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Premier said, and I quote in Hansard, "Myself as Premier and our government feel very strongly about working with the Aboriginal people in this province and in protecting their rights." Mr. Speaker, frankly, I was glad to hear that because I remember back in 1987 when 4 provincial leaders, when it was a time for fairness for Aboriginal people in the Constitution, including our Premier, scuttled Natives' legitimate claims for entrenching the principle of Aboriginal self-government in Canada's Constitution. Mr. Speaker, so I say now to the Premier, the position of Native people constitutionally is delicate to say the least, Mr. Speaker. Frankly, they don't trust governments, and they haven't forgotten what happened in 1987. My question now to the Premier, in retrospect, Mr. Premier, does the Premier now regret his earlier position at the 1987 Conference on Aboriginal Rights?
No, not at all, Mr. Speaker, because I'd like to see the entrenchment of Aboriginal rights and self-government, but I will always say you better have it defined before you put it in blindly without knowing what it means. I don't think it's difficult for us to work out with the Aboriginal people what it means and define the matter of Aboriginal self-government. And then let's put it in the Constitution. Now, if the honourable member wonders about our commitment to Aboriginal people, I just tell him, look at the record. The record of the Fort Chip settlement, the record of the Sturgeon Lake Band settlement, the record of the Whitefish Band settlement, the record of the Métis Agreement, the record of the Métis Framework Agreement, this government, and the work we've done to help and try and bring together the federal government and the Lubicon Band over some period of time. We've been working with our Aboriginal people. They support us very strongly. That's evidenced by the support for members of the Aboriginal people in this very assembly. So don't talk about scuttling something. We are working with the Aboriginal people, and all we ask is that when we put it in the Constitution, that we take the time to define it.
Mr. Speaker, how is it then that the Premier, in promoting, as he has done, Senate reform, is asking people to say, you know, that we will have effective, the Triple E, without knowing what it means in the future, Mr. Speaker, but we can't do the same for Aboriginal self-government, Mr. Speaker. That's a double standard.
Here.
Well, if that's the question, I don't see any comparison whatsoever. In going through the Senate reform discussions, obviously, one of the things that's going to take most of the time now for the Commission, but even if the Commission had not been there, for First Ministers and our officials and our ministers would have been working out the effective powers. And we would obviously have to do that before we actually have a comprehensive reform of the Senate. That's always been the plan, that you define what those effective powers mean.
Mr. Speaker, that's the point, that we can promote the concept of Aboriginal self-government, Mr. Speaker, and work it out before. And I suggest to the Premier, if he's not prepared to do that, that we're going to be in a straitjacket constitutionally with Aboriginal rights for a long period of time, Mr. Speaker. Right. And, but my question, flowing from the answer, Mr. Speaker, at the recent talks in Ottawa, the Premier insisted that there be a provision for minimal change in the Senate should agreement not be found within 5 years. Mr. Speaker, I say so. That's a reasonable thing to do, and it guaranteed certain changes in the Senate. My question to the Premier, would the Premier be prepared to endorse and promote a similar provision for Aboriginal rights?
Mr. Speaker, I don't know in what kind of detail the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is talking. I don't know whether he means there's some seats or in what context he asked that kind of a question. But I'll tell you one thing, that one of the ironies of what is happening right now, because of concern for Aboriginal rights in some people's minds, is that if Meech Lake fails, the Aboriginal rights process will, like Senate reform, be cancelled. And we will not be discussing it around a constitutional table, and it'll be a real tragedy.
Well, Mr. Speaker, and I say to this Premier that there's no trust for the stand that these governments have taken. It's perfectly understandable why Aboriginal people are doing what they do, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
But my second question, Mr. Speaker, is also to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, we've been waiting patiently here in the Assembly for the government to bring in long-awaited, important legislation in several areas. Instead, Mr. Speaker, what do we get? Get the privatization of a critical money-making public asset so the Treasury can get a quick revenue fix. We get inadequate environment legislation that's too serious to be handled by the Minister of the Environment. We get elk farming. We get a power grab from the universities, Mr. Speaker, in terms of legislation. But, Mr. Speaker, just as importantly, we have to look at what's not there, too, Mr. Speaker, just to see how twisted this government's priorities and values are. And my question is this to the Premier. Can the Premier explain why yet another session appears to be slipping away without legislation for effective, tough conflict of interest guidelines for MLAs?
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to again remind the Leader of the Opposition that there is conflict of interest legislation now. It's called the Legislative Assembly Act, and it is very strong legislation. It was passed by this legislature after a great deal of thought and is now in effect. Nevertheless, at the instigation of this government, we had a fine group of Albertans do a comprehensive report and provide us some 254 pages of details on what might be done and what could be done in order to have additional strengthening of ethics guidelines. Now, as I said before in this assembly, it's a very good report. It has a lot of detail and a lot of new thinking. It's the result of them traveling across North America, talking to other jurisdictions. We are going through that process. We will have it brought to our cabinet and our caucus, and as quickly as possible brought to the legislature. Now, I think we have lots of time in the legislature, and we'll bring it as quickly as we can.
Mr. Speaker, let me remind this Premier that the Walkowicz report came out the second week of March, Mr. Speaker. This legislature spent most of April debating the alleged conflict of interest for the member from Redwater, Andrew, and that affair frankly reinforced what Justice Walkowicz said in his report and what the official opposition has been saying for years in this assembly, that Alberta needs not a watered-down conflict of interest guidelines, but tough, effective guidelines, Mr. Speaker.
In law.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Premier simply this. Can we count on the Premier to bring in new conflict legislation before this session ends or not? Can he be specific for a change, Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Speaker, how would you know when this assembly is going to adjourn? I don't know. I will say this, that we'll bring it as quickly as we can, and we're working on it to bring it as quickly as we can. The members know that sometimes speeches expand to fill all the available time, and that sometimes delays House business. So I give this commitment as I've given to the House before. We'll work on this important matter. We'll work on it in a comprehensive way. We want to do it right, not just quickly, but right, and that's what we're going to do.
Speaker, this is such nonsense. Mr. Speaker, the Walkowicz report included draft legislation. I have a private member's bill that includes draft legislation that we could get together, Mr. Speaker. And it's unacceptable, Mr. Speaker, that we have such flimsy rules that an MLA could be convicted of influence peddling and still not break our guidelines, Mr. Speaker. Now, my question, Mr. Speaker, my question is this to the Premier. The work's already been done, Mr. Speaker. What's the Premier waiting for? Another scandal?
Rubbish. Well, Mr. Speaker, you'll have to tell me about the first scandal. All we had in this legislature, if you want to talk about that, is one member get up, totally unfounded, and try and...
That's right.
And try...
Damn right.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Order, please. You're wasting your own time, honorable members. Mr. Premier, would you like to conclude?
I certainly would, because have one member of this assembly stand up without any evidence at all and try and
Order. Order. Order.
concluding comment, Mr. Premier.
And try and...
Would you like to not say it again, member for Edmonton Jasper Place?
Mr. Speaker, maybe the member from Edmonton Jasper Place parents will straighten him out now that they've seen that kind of performance.
Teach him some manners.
Send them up to the
Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, and will conclude, we certainly have had a case where a member of this assembly has had unfounded allegations brought against them, which has been a shame.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. There seems to be no interest in this topic continuing. Order, please. Order. Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Premier, my questions are to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, many Albertans were disgusted by the role that the Prime Minister played in the most recent constitutional discussions. We saw the manipulation, I believe, of the Prime Minister taking a clause that should have been intended to be placed in the most recent accord, suddenly got lost. Now we see Prime Minister gloating and admitting that he was part of a plan of manipulating Canadians, of playing brinksmanship with the hearing process of the most recent discussions until the very end. Mr. Speaker, my first question to the Premier is this. A lot of Albertans believe that the Premier of our province was part of the confidence, taken into confidence of the Prime Minister. Did our Premier know of the intended manipulation of Canadians by playing brinksmanship with these most recent constitutional discussions?
Mr. Speaker, this matter has been raised by the Leader of the Official Opposition the other day, and I give the same reply to the Leader of the Liberal Party, that surely they should not take their information on important matters and then make disparaging comments about the Prime Minister of the country when they don't know the facts. If they're merely going to take something out of a report, a second-hand report, is hardly the way to make judgments. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, obviously we were down there to fulfill the three principles that I outlined to this Assembly, and which we were able to not only establish but accomplish. And that was to fight for the unity of our country, have strong, equal provinces, and end up with meaningful breakthrough on Senate reform. Now, with the successful conclusion of the agreement, and that, of course, has some risks right now, those things will all be accomplished. But, Mr. Speaker, I tell the honourable member, it's hardly the way to cast that kind of aspersion on the leader of our country.
He's the one that's killing him.
Speaker, I saw the manipulation of that last clause, and the Premier explained how he expected that clause to be part of the accord. It wasn't. That was manipulation. My second question is this. Mr. Speaker, the die seems to be cast now that the timelines for June the 23rd will not be met in Manitoba and likely in Newfoundland. My question is this. Is the Premier prepared to continue taking the route of looking after Quebec's interests and ensuring that those timelines are met, or is he prepared to say to the Prime Minister, extend the timelines, make sure that all Canadians have an opportunity to have their say on this most recent accord?
There are two things the honourable member has referred to. One is a clause, and again, and here he goes again, have no knowledge of what he's talking about.
That's right.
And Mr. Speaker, I was in the room, I saw what happened, I knew that there was a draftsman who apologized directly to Premier Wells, explained it to Premier Wells. He's one of the most respected legal minds, as a matter of fact, a friend of Premier Wells, Mr. Tassé, made the apology. Mr. Wells accepted it, and they both sat and said that it happened inadvertently, and it was not intended, and it was put back in. Just after a little bit of discussion between the two of them and all the premiers, they thought it had been handled a different way. And for the leader of the Liberal Party to again stand up and talk about something he has no knowledge of is typical of the way he conducts himself in this legislature. And it's shameful.
Shameful is right.
So, Mr. And then, secondly, to stand up and do what some people do, and that is to try and create disunity by taking a shot at another part of our country over a sensitive matter, such as, say, catering to Quebec. I think that's the cheapest kind of political opportunism.
Mr. Speaker, I consider the Premier to be helping in covering up the Prime Minister's tracks on this, because it was he that said to me that that clause was supposed to be in that accord. You believed it, and so did the other First Ministers, and it was manipulated out by the Prime Minister. My last question to the Premier is this. It's clear that this accord will fail in Manitoba, and I believe it'll fail because of the actions of Newfoundlanders. What contingency plan does our government have, Mr. Premier, in that failing of the accord?
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party, again, doesn't know what he's talking about. He's being hypothetical. Also, Mr. Speaker, the clause that he's referring to is in the accord. It's in the accord. Now, it's again, you know, we're not going to take him along anymore if he doesn't learn any more than that.
Yeah. Here.
So Mr. Speaker, let's, on this issue of the failure of the accord, think again that we are putting our country at risk. And let's make sure that, and hope that all Canadians realize that we are now once again bringing our nation, one of the finest nations in the world, to the brink of disunity and breaking apart. Now, if the honourable member wonders what options you might consider in that case, obviously there's going to be some terrible potentials that could damage Canada for all time. But for my part, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to dwell on the negative as the leader of the Liberal Party is. I'm going to continue to fight for my country.
Smoky River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I had the opportunity of traveling through northern Alberta, where Mother Nature was fairly unkind to its residents, depositing up to 175 millimeters of rain in a 36-hour period. The concerns are still there. I was appalled at the level of some of the rivers in the southern part of the Peace River country. My understanding is that there are still areas in the northern part of the province that are in danger. Question to the Minister of Environment. Would the Minister share with us just what the status of the rivers, are there dangers out there, and what is the status for particularly the further part of northern Alberta?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as of a few moments ago, the floodwaters are working their way down the Peace, the Athabasca, and the Pembina rivers. The flood peak at the village of Fort Vermilion is expected to occur at about noon today, and the flood wave along the Pembina River is not expected to pass through all potential flood areas until Monday, June 18th, and the wave passing down the Athabasca is not expected to cause any significant flooding. I might add that the dikes that were built by the government during the 70s and the 80s to protect the town of Peace River from flooding saved that town from disastrous flood damage, and flood levels for this event were almost a meter higher during the 1972 flood event when much of the town was inundated.
The acting Minister of Public Safety Services today, I'd just like to say that the report at 9:30 this morning said clearly that they feel that in the hamlet of Fort Vermilion that the levels of, that the officials have things well in hand. There's been a fair amount of sandbagging underway, and they feel they have it under control. At Rycroft, there is a number of mobile homes flooded, and the sewage lift station is in some disrepair, but they feel in those areas that they have things under control. There is extensive road damage, and the Minister of Transportation may wish to respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My second question is to the Minister of Transportation.
Basically, it became apparent yesterday that there were three primary aspects of concern. One was flooding, two was erosion, and third was the status of the roads. There have been entire riverbanks caved in, roads have been removed as a result of that. My question to the minister is, when will the minister be able to provide us with a status and an update of the condition of the roads within that area that was affected?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's a continuing process at this point. The water is going down behind the wave, so to speak. Last night we were able to get access back into the Grovedale area south of Grand Prairie via 666. They had been completely cut off at that point. Highway 49, we expect the bridge to be open sometime today with the water going down, and 734, the road south of the highway into Grand Prairie, is blocked with a massive mudslide that we have there. We haven't determined the total amount of damage to this point because a good number of the area is still underwater, and we'll be working on that. Hopefully the point I may make is that we're doing everything to ensure that we have access as quickly as possible after the waters have receded.
Edmonton Calder.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Family and Social Services has said, with respect to poverty, that Alberta has less than the national average of people living below the poverty line, when in fact we have a greater number of poor families than the national average, and Mr. Speaker, the numbers are growing. The Leader of the official opposition, unlike the Premier and this Minister, take these numbers so seriously that he has established a task force to look into the needs of these families and their children. And I'd like to ask the Minister of Family and Social Services, how can this minister downplay the seriousness of the thousands of families and their children living in poverty in this province and say that we are below the national average when in fact we are above it?
Well, again, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd want to make it very clear that this minister nor this government have ever tried to downplay the seriousness of the problem as it relates to child poverty. And I'm delighted, in fact, Mr. Speaker, to hear that the Leader of the official opposition is going to be participating in a task force. I think that's the kind of input that we're looking for from members opposite. But I'd like to quote my source, Mr. Speaker. It's a document that's put out by the National Council of Welfare entitled Children in Poverty, and I know that the member opposite has received a copy of it, and it shows very clearly, Mr. Speaker, that here in Alberta, in terms of child poverty, the most recent statistics that we have shows Alberta's percentage of child population living below the poverty line being at 15.6%. That compares to Saskatchewan being at 25.7%, which is, of course, very regrettable. Compares to British Columbia at 20.2%. And it compares to the national average, Mr. Speaker, of 17.6%. So as I've said before in this assembly, that quite clearly the information that I have, not a source attributable directly to me, but to the National Council of Welfare, according to that source, Mr. Speaker, we are considerably below. But again, Mr. Speaker, I have said all along that we take no pride at being below the national average, but we in Alberta know that that's not good enough. And I've said all along that we're not prepared to sit back and just leave it at that we're going to continue to fight against poverty in our province and in our nation, and that we're going to continue to offer some of the best programs of support available in the country today. And we're going to continue to look for new initiatives and new ways of addressing poverty. And Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to work in partnership with Albertans, because again, Mr. Speaker, it's not something that this government can wave its wand and put an end to. It's not something that this government can sign away, Mr. Speaker. It's something that we have to work on together.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this government cares so much, this minister cares so much that he won't even raise the shelter allowances for people on social assistance to ease some of their pain, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, the minister continues to say that the numbers are dropping. According to the Canadian Council on Social Development, however, the numbers are in fact increasing.
It's important,
and I would ask the minister this.
Jim, it's important.
That will the minister admit that the reason he says that the numbers are dropping when in fact other sources say that they are increasing is because he does not place these children and their families as a priority? Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, again, I regret when I see members opposite try to exploit statistics in situations for political gain. I can only say, Mr. Speaker, as I've said on many occasions in this Assembly, that we are committed. We are committed to working with Albertans. We are committed to working with Canadians. And I would want to mention the progress on the national scene, Mr. Speaker, and we're working with groups like the Child Poverty Action Group, Canadian Child Welfare Association, Canadian Council on Children and Youth, Canadian Council on Social Development, the Vanier Institute. Here in Alberta, the new Premier's Council in support of strengthening Alberta's families. Mr. Speaker, a very, very serious problem. I might add that I'm attending a ministers' conference with my colleagues from across Canada. The number one item on the agenda is children's poverty. Mr. Speaker, we're all looking for solutions. We're all looking for answers because we recognize that we have a wealthy, affluent nation. We have a province that has some tremendous resources. Mr. Speaker, we're working to develop some of those resources. I wish the members opposite would be more supportive of some of those diversification initiatives that we're bringing forward.
Thank you. Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the anger that's been created by the transfer of ownership of the St. John's Hospital from the Sisters of Service to the Edson municipality refuses to go away. The minister insists that consultation took place, yet we have correspondence from Archbishop McNeil of Edmonton, Bishop O'Byrne from Calgary on behalf of the bishops of Alberta, and from Father Richard Conrad, a board member of the hospital from St. Catherine's Anglican Church in Edson. Mr. Speaker, from Father Conrad's letter, he says, I wish to express my displeasure in regards to the manner in which the proposed transfer of ownership was decided by the Honorable Nancy Betkowski. Mr. Speaker, I'll table these letters from the Reverend gentleman. The thing we've learned, Mr. Speaker, is that the process has been badly flawed, and that we now see a major concern related not only to the specific, but to all voluntary healthcare institutions. To the minister, Mr. Not as long as the last one we heard, Mr. Deputy Premier. Mr. Speaker, the people are angry and frustrated that they have not been considered. Will the minister now place a moratorium on this decision and on the transfer in order to give opportunity to consider everyone's opinions and to rethink the decision?
Hear, hear.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not really sure what the honourable member is suggesting. Whenever a difficult decision is made, there are going to be people that agree with the decision and people that don't agree with the decision. The reality is that in the case of the St. John's Hospital, we had two boards running a single facility. And when the sisters wrote to me to say that they could no longer be running the facility, they weren't able to do it, and wanted to change the equity agreement that had existed with the province for some time, we obviously had to look at it. There was consultation in the community, but if the members of the Liberal Party think that by talking to everybody and coming up with a magic solution that's going to make everybody happy is going to be a solution, I quite frankly doubt that that would be the case. The honourable member made, however, a very serious allegation in her question, and that is that all voluntary institutions in our province are under threat of being closed down by the province. I think the honourable member need only look at the additions that have been made to those voluntary hospitals, like the Grey Nuns Hospital, a new hospital in Edmonton, and we asked that the Grey Nuns run that hospital. I think that's quite an attestation, a historic one, of the support that the province has for the voluntary sector. But in addition to that, I have met with the Alberta Catholic Foundation on more than one occasion to suggest to them that they look at the means by which the transfer out of the equity agreements occurs in order that the foundation might take over that ownership. Because when you get right to the brink of that being the decision and the triggering mechanism being the sisters contacting the province and saying we can no longer run this facility, then you start to have all of the public debate engendered by that. I think you only need look at Edson, look at the position of the democratically elected town council of Edson and how supportive they are and other municipal councillors are of the province's role. But certainly, as a bottom line, the role of voluntary hospitals in this province is exceedingly important, and it is the intent of this government to do whatever we can to continue that role, in fact, enhance that role.
Mr. Speaker, I'm only asking that it be reconsidered in the light of the anger and divisiveness that it's caused. Mr. Speaker, my second question to the minister is this: if the minister truly wants to believe that the future of voluntary hospitals is secure in the province, then why didn't the minister and the department undertake to implement a joint board between the municipality and the foundation, as was suggested and has been working successfully in Lamont and Bonnyville?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there was consultation within the community, and in fact I tabled a response to the question raised in that regard, I think, by the member for Edmonton Centre, so it's a matter of record in terms of the consultation that occurred. It was the view of the review, and certainly the view of our cabinet when we made the decision, that in the best interests of the municipality, in the best interests of the health of the community, and certainly in the interests of having a single board, that this was the best solution. What will happen with respect to others in the province is one that, as I indicated earlier, I'm working with the foundation to try and smooth the transition of that eventuality in those equity agreements.
Leslie Slavelyk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Premier, there is a great deal of confusion, particularly after listening to many of the questions brought forward this morning, regarding the ratification of the recent Meech Lake Agreement. Could the Premier indicate to the Assembly what the concerns are regarding the deadline of June 23rd?
Mr. Speaker, the June 23rd deadline is not a consequence of Meech Lake or any of the constitutional agreements and discussions that we've been going through. The June 23rd deadline is a creation of the constitutional amendment of 1981, when the premiers and the first ministers at that time patriated the Constitution and built a new amending process into the Constitution. We have no choice in the matter. We inherited the 3-year period condition from the Constitution as it was patriated under the previous first ministers. It dictates that all legislatures and the House of Commons and the Senate must pass a constitutional amendment within 3 years. And so while it has obviously lots of problems with elections and changes of premiers and so on, I don't think that former first ministers really considered all of the problems that might happen in this 3-year period. And one of the things that is in the current constitutional agreement is that we will review the overall amending process, including the 3-year period, as well as the matter of mandatory public hearings.
Thank you. Is there a mechanism, Mr. Premier, in place which will accommodate the extension of this deadline?
Mr. Speaker, I think it'd be helpful if the Minister of Federal Intergovernmental Affairs, Deputy Premier, gave some details about that feature in our Constitution.
Mr. Speaker, it is a serious issue, but the fact is that there is the only mechanism which would be available to relieve against the closure of time on this issue would be to pass constitutional amendments through all the legislatures and the Houses of Parliament. Clearly, that is the only relief valve, and it's certainly not usable. And the leader of the Liberal Party is clearly uninformed about the Constitution of Canada. And I don't know why he should be. He is a lawyer, and I would think that he would know something.
That's probably why.
Well, one would like to
hope that a basic understanding of Section 39 of the Constitution, which provides the amending procedure. You know, it's rather interesting, Mr. Speaker, this morning I heard a broadcaster say that the premiers had agreed at Meech Lake to a 3-year deadline. You know, that type of misinformation coming from news media is really unfortunate. I think has clouded the issue quite substantially. The fact of the matter is, it is part of the Constitution of Canada. It was not a decision made by the premiers and the Prime Minister at Meech Lake or the Landsman Bloc. It's part of the Constitution, and that's the deadline and the dilemma that we are facing now in the nation. And there's just no other relief valve or mechanism than the full-scale constitutional amendment, and that's just not possible to achieve.
Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of the Environment. It concerns not the natural disasters, but some of the human-engineered disasters in our province. Unfortunately, we have a situation where the Minister of Energy is putting off answering questions about the issue of pipeline safety pending an investigation of a spill of some 2 million liters in the Rocky Mountain House area. He did, however, state earlier this week that he did not discuss with the Vice President of AMICO the pipeline leak prevention code and the fact that neither the government nor the public have any role to play in writing or revising this document. Now, as much as the government would like to focus on this one particular incident, I'm concerned about the alarming trend, the increase in the number of incidents. There's been a doubling of the number of reported failures over the last 15 years. We're up to about 2.5 such incidents every day. And I wonder if the Minister of the Environment, who has responsibility to clean up these messes, if he is also concerned about the number of incidents and what he's doing to reduce the number in the province of Alberta.
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I would be most pleased to receive a list from the honourable member of these incidents. My gosh, you know, there are degrees of seriousness relative to spills. What is he talking about? Is he talking about you know, someone accidentally knocking over a bottle of salt, or is he talking about, you know, something that is well, I mean, he is talking, Mr. Speaker, in such generalities about spills. How could one possibly answer the question? If the honourable member wants to be specific, if he wants to point things out, if he wants to elaborate on the seriousness of the spills, I would be glad to answer those questions relative to the specific nature of the spill.
The question of what he's doing to prevent them is admittedly a difficult question, and perhaps you'd like to ponder it. I would be glad to provide the statistics, which are very easily available from the Energy Resources Conservation Board, and the Minister is right. They're not all as serious as AMICO, and perhaps that's a matter of luck so much as any other thing. But according to AMICO's story, they followed the industry's recommended practice. A leak was discovered when they did their material balance after 7 days. The only trouble is that in those 7 days, 2 million liters...
Order, please. Order. Order. The supplementary question now, please.
My question to the Minister of the Environment is, given that the industry code of practice only requires them to do a material balance every 30 days, does he not see that if you can get 2 million liters leak out in a week, how many liters do you think might leak out over a 30-day period?
How's your math there?
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, the situation relative to the AMICO spill is under investigation. It's under investigation by the Energy Resources Conservation Board. My department is involved, and if indeed something is found through that investigation that leads us to believe that there needs to be a tightening up of the monitoring and the rules, then that will be done. But I would like to point out, Mr. Speaker, that because of the emergency response preparedness of Alberta Environment, that we were there on the site. We were able to take all the measures deemed necessary, along with OSCAR, to contain the spill and to minimize the damage. And I think that that's very, very important to recognize as well.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Consumers in Alberta who are concerned about the environment and who want to use clean-burning ethanol blend fuels can do so by purchasing it at Mohawk, and that ethanol is produced in Manitoba, providing jobs and marketing opportunities for farmers and workers in the province of Manitoba. Now, we've got news recently that a plant is now opening in Lanigan, Saskatchewan, near the Alberta border, because of a joint venture between Mohawk Oil, Poundmaker Feeders, and the Saskatchewan Wheat Pool. Everybody else is getting into the game, Mr. Speaker. Alberta isn't. And I'd like to ask the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, given the fact that ethanol has substantial environmental advantages, economic development opportunities for regions outside our major centres, why is this government not doing anything to stimulate the development of this important industry in our province?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member and I, going back over the last number of years, have had a continuous debate on this issue. It's only fair to point out to the honourable member, as we have pointed out in the past, that this government is very supportive of it. If the industry believes it's the right thing to do, we are more than happy to work hand in hand with the industry. We have placed no inhibitants whatsoever to the development of that industry.
Well, Mr. Speaker, going back over a number of years, in the meantime, Mohawk's selling product in Alberta produced in Manitoba, and another plant is opening in Saskatchewan. Albertans are left out in the cold. But let's look at that inhibitor or incentive, Mr. Speaker. In Saskatchewan, the government offers a 4-cent a litre benefit to people who blend ethanol into fuel. Alberta, by contrast, it's 4/10 of a cent a litre. Why won't this government offer at least the same level of incentive as our neighbouring provinces, so that if the industry is going to develop, it has a chance to develop here?
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the honourable member does admit finally that we are offering incentives. We acknowledge that they're not to the degree that other provinces are doing so. We're not about to get into bidding wars with other provinces, Mr. Speaker, but I appreciate very much the acknowledgement by the honourable member that we are offering incentives to this industry.
Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications. Since 1982, the provincial government has given, through various programs, some $20 million in support to a company called Mirius Research Corporation. And in their audited financial statement ending the 31st of December 1989, they make a statement that they have a working capital deficiency of some $3 million. And they state that additional support from either shareholders or from the provincial government that has supported them in the past is going to be necessary in order for this company to continue. So my question to the Minister is simply this. Given our $20 million investment in this company, what has the Minister done to monitor this company and to monitor its progress over the last year to ensure that our $20 million investment is in fact safe?
Mr. Speaker, firstly, with respect to the honourable member's facts relative to the investment of this government, the government currently has preferred shares in the amount of $1.5 million and a loan outstanding of $7.5. There are, however, other major shareholders, both in the private sector as well as the Alberta Opportunity Company, that are involved in this company. The company was financed primarily to develop a parallel processing computer system, which indeed it has in the form of an SP2S machine. It has gained wide support from the University of Colorado and its studies there as well. It's been under review and study by the Alberta Research Council. There have been certain areas within its technology that are still being developed and improved upon. And indeed, when the SPS-3 machine comes out in early fall, it is anticipated that it indeed will meet all of the specifications of a first-class parallel processor.
Well, wide support, hardly call one lease and no sales in the last year wide support. Well, my supplementary question to the Minister then, has the Minister received any indication from Mirius that in fact that the government, that is, will be approached for additional funding, and has that already occurred? And if so, is the government prepared to allocate any more funding to this particular company?
Mr. Speaker, it has indeed made sales over the past year. Obviously, not as many as what one would like, but it is in that preliminary stage of development of that technology. It's a very sophisticated technology in parallel processing, but the reports that I have received of late indicate that it is making solid improvement. But indeed, it will require further capital as it goes down, and as it goes down the road, we will ensure that we keep a very close watch on this company and assess it from the financial standpoint in order to make sure that it remains viable and it achieves its objectives in the parallel processing field. Two ministers have supplementary information to supply to other members, but before we go to that, I wonder if first we might have unanimous consent to revert to the introduction of special guests. Thank you. First, the Minister of Recreation and Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I would like to introduce to you and to the members of the Legislative Assembly some people from my constituency, 38 students from the Innisfree Junior and Senior High School. They're here today to watch parliamentary democracy in motion, and I'll soon be meeting them and having my picture taken with them. They are accompanied by Mr. Harry Kulak, one of their teachers, and the mayor of Innisfree, and Mrs. Mildred Sake, another teacher, and parents, Miss Nadidia Maldick and Mrs. Joanna Halushik. They are seated in the members' gallery, and I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Anoka Rimby, followed by Westlock Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my colleague, the member for Wainwright, I wish to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly 16 grade 8 students from St. Thomas Aquinas School located in the town of Provost. They are accompanied by teachers Teresa Page and Debbie Wagner and parents Donna Bromelling, Ellis Swaincoat, and Leonard Knox. Mr. Speaker, they are seated in the members' gallery, and I would ask them to stand and receive the traditional warm welcome of the Assembly.
Westlock Sturgeon.
Monsieur le Président, ça m'a fait plaisir de vous présenter à cette Assemblée 31 étudiants de l'école légale dans le comté de Westlock Sturgeon. Monsieur le Président, the 31 students are accompanied by their teachers, Denise Sear, Darlene Johnson, and parents Kathy Brisson, Doreen Provençal, and Mary Parsons. They're seated in the public gallery, and I would ask them to rise and receive the traditional welcome of the legislature.
First, Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism, with respect to a question raised by the member for Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the member from Calgary McKnight raised some questions about grant funding to the Alberta Band Association, and in the lead-up to her question, left the impression with the Assembly, and therefore with the people of Alberta, that there had been a dramatic decrease in the support the government provides to the arts. Her question pointed to something about a decrease of something in the order of 28 or 29% in the budget. Now, that is true, Mr. Speaker. There was a decrease in the actual tax-funded budget of the department, but that coincided with a large increase in lottery allocations to the big 8 performing organizations, whose deficits were paid off, increased operating support, and there was a budget increase to the smaller performing arts organizations. In actual fact, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the entire picture, there was not a decrease in funding to the arts. In fact, there was something in the order of a 30% increase in actual dollars arriving in the hands of arts organizations. So I should make that point in the preamble. But more specifically to the question of the Alberta Band Association, and it somewhat parallels, but the facts are this. In the spring of 1988, the Alberta Band Association received an increase in their lottery allocation of $25,000. That raised their total allocation to $125,000. There was a coincident decrease in an operating grant of $10,000 and the $11,000 junior band program to which the member referred. But, Mr. Speaker, the net increase to the Band Association was $4,000, an increase in allocations to that organization. We decided, though, in discussions in the department branch that the program would be funded for one more year, to give them some opportunity to look for other arrangements. In April of this year, I corresponded with the Band Association and told them that we would look at individual workshops in remote areas. I did that again in May, and then again in June, just Thursday of last week, told the Alberta Band Association that we would consider individual requests for individual workshops in individual areas, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary question, Calgary McKnight.
Then being very specific, Mr. Speaker, I would ask the minister to let me know if the 2 cancelled summer band camps have been restored.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I outlined, the actual dollars to the association have been increased. The band association's workshops they can apply for specific workshops on a specific basis. Things that have been canceled, Mr. Speaker, but there is money there to provide for these things. The honourable member wants to spend more tax dollars on bands, their party wants to spend them on schools and parks and hospitals and on farms and on everything else under the sun, Mr. Speaker. But our commitment, Mr. Speaker, is to balance the budget.
Minister of Health, in reply to Edmonton Calder.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Education responded to some questions raised by the member for Edmonton Calder with respect to power mobility aids, wheelchair aids provided by the province under the Alberta Aids to Daily Living program or other means. I can tell the honourable member that I'm currently, as I've told the House, conducting a full review of the Alberta Aids to Daily Living program and the Extended Health Benefits program to see if we're spending the over $40 million on those programs in the appropriate way. Clearly, within the context of that comes the recommendation of the Premier's Council on the Disabled with respect to power mobility aids for those over the age of 18. And that specific question has gone to that review team to see what I might be able to recommend to this House by the fall.
Edmonton Calder.
Mr. Speaker, well, the issue remains about the matching grant to the non-profit agencies that are trying to supply power mobility aids. And I would ask the minister, has she given consideration to match the grants in terms of the money that the agencies have raised?
Yes, specifically and generally. And one of the questions I think that we need to look at in AADL is, should there be a matching component for work being done by other nonprofit groups in the province? And that's a specific question I've asked, not only with respect to Easter Seals support, but also overall as a component of the program. And that will be something I'll speak to when I bring forward the proposed changes for the program in the fall.
Edmonton Millwoods, Standing Order 40.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the unanimous support of members of the House for the resolution which has been circulated earlier to all members calling for the Assembly to endorse international sanctions against South Africa in order to speed up the full liberation of the South African people from the oppression of apartheid. And speaking to the urgency of that matter, tomorrow, of course, is the United Nations Day of Solidarity with the people of South Africa, commonly referred to as Soweto Day. And we are about to have an historic visit to our country by Mr. Nelson Mandela. And so we have an opportunity today to get on the record showing some solidarity on this issue. And I hope that we can count on members of the House to do that, because just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the European Parliament passed a resolution by an overwhelming majority calling on European community leaders to keep up economic pressure on South Africa. And our own record in this regard has been, to be pretty frank, very poor. We've had the province of Alberta supporting some 40% of Canadian exports to South Africa, mainly sulfur. And we've had the provincial government refusing to endorse the international campaign boycott against Shell oil by purchasing some $5 million worth of products from Shell. So I'm asking the members of the House today to, in regard to this special day that the United Nations has set aside tomorrow, to stand together with the people of South Africa so that we can be proud here in Alberta and not have to hang our heads in shame once again at the provincial government's complicity in this matter.
Oh, hold it. Complicit. The chair already has one of those difficulties with regard to some statements yesterday, so the blues will be reviewed with regard to that statement. With respect to Standing Order 40, is there a willingness to give unanimous consent? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. No. Matter fails. Orders of the day.
Government motions. Motion number 7.